Common raven, Corvus corax, is among the most widespread birds in the world. It's native to all continents except Antarctica, and can survive temperatures in the northern Siberian tundra, as well as the desolate Mojave Desert. So how do these birds regulate their body temperatures in so many extreme conditions? My name is Gigi Alvarez, and I'll be talking about the thermoregulation of ravens for my Level 3 Homeostasis project. Birds, as a general rule, have higher metabolic rates than mammals like us. Most birds have increasing metabolic rates as their mass decreases. Ravens weigh between 689 and 1,625 grams, so they're pretty large birds. A raven's metabolic rate, which is 180 calories per kilogram per day, is fairly low for a bird because of their size. They maintain an average body temperature of 39.9 degrees Celsius through endothermic regulation. This means that ravens must balance their rate of heat loss and heat production through physiological and behavioral adaptations. All birds have a thermoneutral zone, where they do not have to consciously produce or eliminate heat. At the ends of this zone are the lower critical temperature and the upper critical temperature. It is very rare to find a bird with a lower critical temperature below 10 degrees Celsius, but a raven's lower critical temperature is 0 degrees, exactly freezing. The upper critical temperature is around 41 degrees, but ravens have been tested to withstand up to 50 degrees Celsius. Cold temperatures and warm temperatures are tolerated in different ways. Both stimuli are detected by TRP, or thermoreceptive neurons, on the raven's skin. These receptors work by creating pathways for sodium ions and calcium ions. Different levels of these ions correspond to different temperatures. The axons from these neurons send signals to the root ganglion, then onto the gray matter of the spinal cord. If the signals have the concentration of sodium ions and calcium ions that correspond to the raven's lower critical temperature, the brain intercepts the need to increase body temperature. If the concentration of ions corresponds to the upper critical temperature, then the brain knows the body temperature must be decreased. That is where the similarities end. If the body temperature of a bird is too cold, the brain sends signals to the muscles and skin to contract. When the skin contracts, the feathers of the ravens are erected and fluff up. This traps air between the different fibers of the feathers, which can be easily warmed through existing body heat, so the air acts as a layer of insulation to prevent any more heat loss. Muscle contraction is synonymous with shivering. All birds shiver to generate heat, but in order for shivering to occur, the muscle fibers must be supplied with enough ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, energy. The metabolic system, especially the aerobic respiration system, provides this energy. Aerobic respiration provides long-term energy by reacting glucose and oxygen to form carbon dioxide, water, and ATP. This reaction is exothermic, so it will produce heat as a byproduct. When ATP is used by the muscle cells, it releases a phosphate and becomes ADP, or adenosine diphosphate. This is modeled by this equation. Since heat is also released in this reaction, the entire act of shivering creates body heat. The heat from these reactions is passed to the circulatory system through conduction, and the circulatory system takes the warm blood to the rest of the body. In very cold conditions, however, heat from the blood doesn't reach the raven's extremities, like its legs and feet. The circulatory system of birds and amphibians has a feature called cross-current exchange. Instead, heat from the arteries flowing out of the body will pass by conduction to veins coming in from the peripherals. However, the blood will keep flowing to supply appendages with nutrients and oxygen so they don't fall off, like when mammals get frostbite. Ravens do not have a capacity for facultative hypothermia like some seabirds do, so being able to conserve heat through their circulatory system is useful. When the TRP neurons detect an abnormally high temperature, then the brain responds by sending signals to the respiratory system to quicken breathing. Ravens don't have sweat glands, so they can only use heat by panting or through radiation. Like all birds, ravens have a relatively quick breathing rate that can dissipate heat easily, even at normal breathing rates. They exhale the hot air inside their bodies and inhale cooler air from outside their bodies. The faster they can exhale the hot air that has been warmed by their own body heat, the cooler their bodies can become. Ravens also have quite large beaks, which radiate a lot of heat so their body temperature can decrease. The bare skin on their legs and around their eyes also lose heat quite effectively, which can help ravens keep their body temperature in check. Although ravens are well adapted to a very wide range of temperatures, there are still factors that can inhibit their thermoregulation. Since ravens are scavengers, they are resistant to many diseases they could get from their decomposing and possibly disease-infested food. There have been no accounts of ravens dying from any kind of illness that I could find. However, there is a pattern to the most extreme places ravens are found. All of them are also occupied by humans. Ravens can only exist in places where other organisms also do, because they're scavengers, and in very extreme environments, only humans are able to create a comfortable environment for themselves. Without a food source, ravens have a finite store of glucose in their bodies. Once this glucose is used up, they can no longer perform respiration to generate ATP and heat, so their body temperature cannot be maintained. In very hot places, their ability to thermoregulate is not disturbed at temperatures under 50 degrees Celsius. If it ever gets that hot, the raven's panting mechanism doesn't work, because it cannot keep up with the heat accumulating in the body. Not to mention, the outside air is almost hotter than the inside air. In this case, the raven can die of oxygen deprivation due to attempts to thermoregulate.
Thermoregulatory importance to the individual and adept advantages to the species. Rats have a range of internal temperatures, Tc, in which their biological processes and systems function. The range of temperatures is known as a tolerance range. Thermoregulation is fundamental to the individual as it contributes to maintenance of a stable internal environment, keeping Tc within the tolerance range. This enables other biological processes and systems to function correctly. Examples of these other processes and systems are blood chemistry, glucose levels in the blood, maintaining balance of respiratory gases in tissues, and rate of digestion. As an evolutionary adaptation, thermoregulation by the brown rat has allowed incredible widespread geographical distribution of the species. Its origin is in northern China. However, brown rats have managed to colonize almost every climate zone and geography in the world, from the wet to the dry and the hot deserts to the cold South Pacific. The ability to maintain Tc within the tolerance range allows rats to live in different areas with widely varying ambient temperatures, Ta. As the brown rat has expanded its distribution globally, it has decreased intraspecific competition by allowing more places to live, reducing competition for food, and thus reducing the possibility of starvation. During disease or infection outbreak, the widespread distribution of the species reduces the possibility of species and gene extinction. Behaviors of rats in thermoregulation. Brown rats practice communal huddling and are ample burrowers. Both of these behaviors increase the effectiveness of thermoregulation by attempting to adjust the skin temperature of the rat closer to the rat's Tc. This is a productive way of preserving energy by decreasing energy used in biochemical processes involved in thermoregulation. Burrows create a cool area for the rats to lower their Tc during hot summers, and in cold winters the burrows act as natural heaters. Burrows are also essential to the rat for the survival of their young. Newborn rats are born hairless and therefore require more heat. By remaining underground where the temperature is higher and receiving body heat from their mother, newborns obtain sufficient energy to maintain Tc. Brown rats live in social hierarchies which allow for communal huddling. Communal huddling attempts to adjust the direct Ta of the rat herd to increase rate and effectiveness of thermoregulation. Structural adaptations involved in thermoregulation to create a cooling system. The rat's tail may appear to be useless, but in fact it has one of the most important functions. The tail is part of a feedback control system in which the aim is to lower the Tc of the rat. This system is triggered by an increase in Ta, which is detected by the thermoregulatory receptors that are the skin receptors. These cause a message to be sent via the nervous system to the brain, relaying a message indicating there has been an increase. The area of the brain which is involved in thermoregulation is known as the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus sends nerve impulses to the muscles surrounding the blood vessels in the tail. These muscles cause the blood vessels to dilate or swell, consequently causing more blood to pass through. As the warmed blood passes through the tail, heat is released. This is due to the appropriate characteristics of the tail. A very large surface to volume ratio, allowing more heat to be released. C, a high concentration of blood vessels, allowing more blood flow through the tail. And C, hairlessness, allowing more heat to be released. Consequently, this results in the blood being cooled and then transported around the entire body, causing a decrease in TC. Although the tail is able to contribute to the heating of the rat by constricting of the blood vessels, it is unable to make a significant difference to this TC due to the characteristics of the tail mentioned previously. Disruptions of thermoregulation in brown rats. To begin, we first must define what a breakdown in the system looks like. A breakdown in thermoregulation results in the inability to control core body temperature. We know when a breakdown in the system occurs when TC increases or decreases to a temperature that is less ideal. This can be broken down further into two categories of breakdown. Catastrophic breakdown, resulting in approaching death, and prohibiting breakdown, resulting in a change of reaction by increasing or decreasing concentration or activity of chemicals or structures. Causes of these breakdowns can be separated into two categories, external and internal. In external, we have urban and industrial chemicals, e.g. chemical toxins, nickel, cadmium, lead, and dioxins. Rural chemicals, e.g. pesticides, and coastal dangers, e.g. marine algal toxins. Internally, we have aging, diet or calorie load, exercise, genetics and mutations, disease and infection, pregnancy, and increases and decreases in chemical production. Each of these examples have a very complicated background and a process that will follow. My specific example that I will analyze is the effects of marine algal toxins on the biochemical processes of thermoregulation in brown rats. The effects of marine algal toxins on the biochemical processes of thermoregulation in brown rats. In 1922, there was an unusual breakout of marine algal toxins in New Zealand coastal environments. A monitoring program that was set up identified 4 of the major toxins in shellfish. The level of toxins found in these shellfish were enough to close harvest of them. Brown rats, being scavengers at the bottom of the food chain, eventually came into contact with these toxins. Experiments have shown that when rats and mice are exposed to these algal toxins, they show explicit hypothermic responses along with a preference for cooler ambient temperatures. Conclusions of these experiments suggested that toxins altered the central neural controller, which is the hypothalamus. So how does this affect the biochemical system of the brown rat? Well, hypothermia means that the TC of the rat is increasing to a temperature above ideal, thus indicating a breakdown in the system. For the hypothalamus to create an increase in the TC, the following must occur. The hypothalamus, under the effects of marine algal toxins, sends out an increased amount of nerve impulses to the adrenal gland. This causes a higher concentration of norepinephrine to be released, thus increasing the amount of fatty acids that are combusted. This results in more heat being produced and the increase in TC. So is this breakdown catastrophic or prohibiting? After administration of the toxins, rodents do not die. However, the toxins did have a lingering effect by causing an increase in the rat's core daytime temperature for the days that followed. Therefore, marine algal toxins are an external influencer which cause prohibiting breakdown of thermoregulation in brown rat.